representative with Arrival Logistics in Chicago, Illinois. Preston graduated from Miami University in 2018 with a degree in sports leadership and management. Upon graduation, Preston made the courageous decision to address his mental health before entering the workforce. He decided to accomplish this by hiking the entire Appalachian Trail from Maine to Georgia, all 2,190 miles of it. His hike gained national attention and raised almost $30,000 for Grant Us Hope, the organization which founded Hope Squad. Grant Us Hope is dedicated to creating communities of leadership and advocacy that enhance mental wellness, safety, and prevention in schools. The inspiration for Preston's hike was his failed suicide attempt the August before his senior year at Miami. In his free time, Preston is an avid sports enthusiast who enjoys both watching and playing a variety of sports. He also likes to travel and spend time with his friends. Tonight, we are honored to have Preston here to share his story of struggle and triumph. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Preston Kahn.
Thank you everyone for letting me come speak with you all. It feels like yesterday I was hiking along the Appalachian Trail. I was either in Georgia or Tennessee when I got a text saying, "How would you feel about coming to speak at Lakota East Baccalaureate in May?" Now you have to keep in mind, I've been in the woods for maybe 100 days at this point, and I don't know which way is up and which way is down. But I just knew whatever I was doing in May, it'd be important to come speak with you all. What you're about to embark on is going to be some of the most important years of your life. It's going to shape you into who you're going to become. College is an incredible time. One of the things that makes it so incredible is just how drastic your life changes from the way of living you're accustomed to now. I'm not talking about the workload or the social aspect. I'm speaking to the fact that you're going to be given a new freedom to be who you want to be. In high school, there's just not the same opportunity to express yourself however you see fit. Right now, you're around the same people every day that you probably have been with for the last 12 years if your school is anything like mine. You go to the classes every day with the same people, pass by each other at the same time, and are exposed to a much smaller world. For me, high school was an incredible time where I was with some of my best friends, and you could say I enjoyed myself socially, but academically, let's just say I wasn't up here as Madeira's valedictorian. School was really a big source of doubt for me, and it made me really question my self-worth. It can start to chip away at your self-esteem. This was something that affected me on a constant basis. Since I entered freshman year of high school, I dealt with the three-headed monster, as I like to call it. ADHD, depression, and anxiety have always been something that's been prevalent in my life, feeding off each other, so school was an extremely difficult time. I managed to make my way into my dream school, Miami, not by luck, though I had to put myself through a semester at Miami Hamilton. That was something that I needed to do in order to prove myself that I was capable of setting and achieving goals. I worked extremely hard to get what I needed to get done. I made it, and I was so happy. That's the trickiest. I felt for the first time that I had my depression and anxiety under control. I stopped seeking help. That's the trickiest thing. When you start seeking things that will help, you begin to see the results, and then you start to put it by the wayside because now you think that you're in control. Fast forward, going into the summer of my senior year, that was a very dark time in my life. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was about 2 weeks away from going back up to Oxford for my senior year when I attempted to take my own life. I was extremely close, and it's scary to this day to think back on. There's about 2 days of my life that I can't remember even if I tried. I came extremely close to not waking up that next day, and I'll never forget my parents looking at me going, "What do we do from here?" All I said was, "Please don't take me out of school. I want to be able to go back up and finish with my class, and I really don't want to graduate late." I can't imagine what was going through their head that day. Probably so many different things, But at that time, they put their faith in me and they said, we'll let you go back up to school. I went back up to Miami for my senior year and began to bury what had happened. When you go to college, you realize that there are a lot of ways to cope with your inner troubles, and you can start to suppress your issues if you want to. No one's there to tell you how to handle your issues, and you're going to be adults who are free to make their own choices, and no one's going to stop you with whatever you choose to do. That's what I did, and for the first semester of my senior year, it's not one that I look back on as a way to try and deal with your problems. That's when I really had to look at myself in the mirror. I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, is this really going to be how I'm going to cope and deal with this issue going forward? Is this where I need to be? And that's when I told myself there's got to be a better way. It's not always going to be easy, but you should do everything in your power to try and find positive outlets that can make you as happy as possible. That's when I came home and told my parents about the trip that I was planning to take. I told them, please don't be mad, but I'm going to forego the whole job search for now and take a trip. I'm going to get my degree, don't worry, but I'm going to be just not entering the workforce right afterwards. I think there was shock, but after the dust settled, they just looked at me and said, please get your degree. You've put in too much work and we've made an investment in you. Then you're free to do whatever you need to do, just as long as you pay for it. Just as long as you pay for it. That was the big thing. That's when I put together my whole plan. I was going to hike the entire Appalachian Trail all the way through and use it as a platform to raise money. I set a goal to raise $20,000 for Grant Us Hope. My hope that was kids in high school from now on were going to have resources that I didn't feel that I had at my disposal when I was there. I think if there was a Hope Squad when I was younger, it would have made a world of difference. I started to plan my whole hiking of the Appalachian Trail. As you can imagine, it's hard to get Miami kids to wrap their mind around the possibility of being out in the woods for 6 months. So I couldn't really get anyone to do it with me. That wasn't going to stop me from doing it though. I was going to do it myself, and I decided to do it southbound, or SOBO as I like to call it. It's the unconventional way to do it. Most people choose to start in Georgia because the terrain is easier to get your legs under you. But because I had to graduate from school first, I embarked on my trip up in Maine on July 7th. I was hoping to complete it in 170 days, finishing on December 22nd, just in time for Christmas. I started out and found myself on top of Mount Katahdin on July 8th, and that's when it really sank into me that I was about to hike 190 miles, which is almost the entire east coast of the United States. I started out hiking the 2 hardest states out of the 14 that I had to travel. After I got my feet under me, I began to hike 25 miles a day. This was the trip that I was able to discover a new sense of self-accountability. When I was getting ready for my trip, my dad said, no one's better at talking the talk than you, but can you walk the walk? So I literally had to walk the walk. Every day I woke up in one shelter out on the trail, and I looked at my map and decided what shelter I was going to make it to. And I would not call it a day until I made it there. I loved it out there on the trail because for the first time, my life was much more simple. My day was considered a success in my eyes when I got to the shelter that I said that I was going to make it to. This trip also taught me to reach out when I was truly down. There was a 5-day stretch where I was hiking through Virginia and didn't talk to another soul other than one person passing by who had no interest in talking. That's when I called my parents, and for the first time, I had to tell them that I was overwhelmed by this entire trip. So my dad made his way down to Virginia and slack packed me for 3 days. He really helped me rejuvenate my spirits, and I wouldn't have been able to possibly finish that unless I reached out in that time of need. When it was all said and done, I had finished 51 days ahead of schedule, and I had raised $29,000, which far exceeded what I ever thought I was going to raise. I had to dig deep, and I had to find some things out about myself. What I learned was that I can power through the really hard times and that not a single moment in life is permanent. I'll never forget hiking in the freezing rain for days at a time, completely underdressed. I didn't have proper gear and was freezing my butt off. I would sometimes sit under a tree miserable, thinking, why am I putting myself through this? Is this even worth it? This is when I had to look within and tell myself that it'll all be fine. All the tough times always pass. I'll warm myself up, I'll get a good night's sleep, and that very night I did exactly that. The only thing in life that is permanent is taking your own life. As you approach this exciting time in your lives, this is going to be your biggest opportunity for growth, but it can also be your most trying time. That's my biggest thing that I'm here today to tell you is that no matter where you are in life, good or bad, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your friends. Share it with your parents. We're not built to go through this life alone, and I can't stress enough to you. Don't keep it to yourself. Nothing, and I mean nothing in life, is worth doing if you can't share it with the people you love. Just last week, I found out that my childhood neighbor, who's probably 3 or 4 years younger than me, committed suicide. I probably haven't seen this kid in about 5 or 6 years, but when I learned of what had happened, I had to leave my desk at work and go outside and collect myself. I was so shook up when I'd heard the news that the only thing I could think of as the details came out was that he was nothing more than an acquaintance at this point in my life, and I was still upset to the extent that I was, and I can't even begin to imagine what his loved ones are going through right now. I think that just goes to show you never underestimate the impact of your life on the others around you. It's so easy to get sucked into the black hole of thinking you're not enough or somehow don't mean anything, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Each and every one of you have a unique and profound impact on the people around you. Never take that away from those you love. The one thing that I always tell myself is the torrential thunderstorms are always followed by the most beautiful days. I just remember being stuck in a whole bunch of rainstorms, only to find myself looking out at the most beautiful rainbows over a ridgeline. And I just think back to that at this very moment and think that's the perfect metaphor for life. It can be really tough, and it always gets better. As the future approaches, I have faith that each and every one of you are capable of going on to do great things. Just make sure you do it together. Thank you.